Without further ado, it's my honor to introduce our esteemed panel. Please welcome overall Visual Effects Supervisor Christopher Townsend. Additional Visual Effects Supervisor Geoffrey Baumann. ILM Visual Effects Supervisor Ben Snow. ILM's Animation Supervisor Marc Chu. And Trixter's Animation Supervisor Simone Kraus. Welcome, guys. Thanks for being here. Chris, good to see you. Jeff, real pleasure. How are you?
Very good.
Nice to meet you. Hello. Welcome, folks. It's really great having you guys here, and I appreciate you coming out to share your stories with us all. Great film. Really exciting.
It was just a sequel.
Yeah. There's clearly a ton of visual effects in that movie. This film came out, what, a couple weeks ago, May 1st? That's right, so it's been out a couple weeks. How long did it take to do this? When did you start on this project? When did you first get your hands on this?
I was on it for about 20 months, so whatever year that was, working in with early drafts of the script and things, breaking it down, that kind of stuff, all the way through to the very end.
Very good. Late last year, it was reported that you guys were expecting to have some 3,000 shots or more, some record for a Marvel film. How was that forecast, and how many shots are in this movie? Or is it easier to say how many shots aren't?
Yeah,
how many visual are not visual?
I think there are about just over 2,800 shots in the film. There are many hundreds left on the cutting room floor, as often is the case with these things. But yeah, so 28 and change, I think.
That's a very, very impressive number. You guys clearly needed a lot of talent to produce this much work. How many? And I know the credits went on for quite some time. How many facilities did you actually end up working with? And can you give us an idea of what some of them, what they focused on? What were they doing? What did they provide to the project?
Sure. There were 20 different visual effects companies, including an in-house company, an in-house unit, and we've got members from ILM and from Trixter here. There were, it was trying to split the work up was an incredible challenge, and trying to get that number of shots through in the production time, the post-production time that we had, which was, it's a Marvel movie, so it's always tight.
My second question to that, with all those people working on it, the consistency throughout the movie, it just was solid. And how do you manage that? How do you keep everybody working in the same direction with the same focus?
I guess I'm answering this one as well. I think it's always one of the main sort of challenges we always face is trying to create an overall aesthetic for the film. And I think it's really a matter of assembling the right teams throughout the world. And this really was a global effort with the number of companies that worked on it, and it really was, I think, they were in 7 different countries. So it's a matter of sharing information, and both good and bad. So if you have results which are positive, then you share those results amongst the other facilities, and the same with the negative stuff. And if you see that someone else has gone down a road that wasn't successful, then you share that as well. And you have to work with companies who are prepared to work that way and be very collaborative. And I think it was one of the sort of the way we chose the companies to work with, with whom we worked, was by finding companies that are able and willing to work, and collaborate. And I think all of the companies, it was amazing. I don't know, Jeff, if you have any other things.
Just their ability as well to collaborate with each other. So vendors themselves speaking to other vendors to help them sort out their issues, not just coming back to us, production side, but actually getting on the phone and speaking to CG Soups or somebody at their facility to help them sort out their issues.
Yeah, I think that was key, that you guys were like, okay, if you want to talk directly, talk directly. I knew Ken McGaw at DNEG going back years, and so we could get on the phone with them, and we could talk to Trixter directly, so that really helps in this situation. And also passing assets back and forward. I mean, everyone's up against it, getting assets done in time. So passing assets even early versions and stuff, and you're always waiting for the final version. But sometimes, like, please just give us something, you know, to get going with. So it was
Clearly a real team effort on everybody's
yeah.
behalf. Well, the other thing I was thinking about watching this movie, this was a sequel. Obviously, we've met these characters before, most of them, but it was really fresh and exciting. And I wonder what were the challenges for you guys, not just logistically but creatively, in what we saw up here.
Well, I think obviously there are a bunch of people that we have seen before with our main Avengers, but there are also there are several characters that are new and that have been reimagined. Hulk is someone that we have seen before, but I challenged Ben and Marc and the team at ILM to come up with something which was sort of the next view of Hulk, the next evolution of him, and so it really meant stripping him down. So I don't know, Ben, if you want to talk a little bit, or Marc, about Hulk.
Yeah, I think it was definitely one of the attractive parts of it was, okay, well, what can we do to push this a little bit further ahead? And so I mean, it's interesting because he's actually a little different in this. You know, at one point we see him as Angry Hulk. So that was actually the first one we tackled. And so in terms of visual and that sort of thing, we were able to sort of go a little bit sort of over the top, richer textures, all that sort of thing on the Angry Hulk. And in developing that, roll it back into the regular Hulk. So we didn't sort of take him back to a baby clear complexion. He still had a bit of the gnarliness. And also, actually, I think, Sean Comer, are you here? I think I saw you. Yes, there is. So Sean, who is one of our creature leads on the show, also proposed a revision to our muscle system that I think made a big difference in terms of the way that technology worked. And so we were able to push that, and we also looked at the shapes and the animation and everything.
Yeah, I think performance-wise, we, saw the first Avengers and saw room for improvement and tried to build on that's what we did on the first one and bring that extra sense of realism and we had some extra some new emotions that we could play with in this movie. He's not always just a raging green superhero. He has some quieter, subtle moments with Black Widow.
And I think that was some of the beautiful parts about the film, that it really allowed us to explore that subtler range of emotion that we didn't really get to appreciate in the first film. So that was very exciting for us going in. And I also think that the other characters, one of the other main characters that's introduced is obviously Ultron, and he came in many guises, and it was really fun working with James Spader, particularly, who was obviously the voice, but also the performance. And James was intent on creating the character not just as the voiceover, but also as the performer himself. So we had Ultron Mark 1, which was done at Trixter. So I don't know, if Simone, if you want to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, that was really fun, working with James. So we didn't have a face, so we had to rely on body language, and so we had a test phase with James, seeing what he would come up with, just a day playing around with the character, and we also videoed him, and we asked him lots of questions, which we then provided to the animators, and together, we put some restraining devices on him to create a unique body language for him, and that's sort of how we started. And, it was a fun process.
And I think that the mocap was used for Ultron Mark 1, which was in the very first time we see him, where he's in his broken body. That was driven mainly by mocap. But then the second, sort of the main incarnation of him, which was Ultron Prime, which both with ILM mainly handled, DNEG handled some of the shots, but ILM handled most of the shots of Ultron Prime, who is the more refined robot who can speak. And again, that was using performance capture, but it was done slightly differently. I don't know, Marc, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, for Ultron Prime, we really did the approach of what we did on Davy Jones. We had James performing on set and really used him as a guide for his animation. And it was great. We had we retained a lot of his performance that he did, and it was great to have that interaction that he had with both the set and other actors. But it's that helped us bring an extra level of character into a robot, which I don't think we would have had if we didn't have an actor performing there on the day.
I think you feel James Spader in there. There's moments, I think, in the animation where he bit his cheek, I think, in one moment, and they've translated that into the animation, and those aspects of it, I think, really bring it home.
Yeah, all the little idiosyncrasies that he does, and it's something that kind of takes him to an extra level of just, instead of just being a robot, he's trying to, almost achieve being human. It's a nice little blend.
What you just mentioned about his performance, he bit his cheek. I wonder, a film like this, obviously you plan it, to the nth degree, and you're doing previs and all that. But was there anything kind of serendipitous along the way through production, or when you're working on the shots, where something changed just by the nature of something you found along the way?
I think James's performance was enlightening. We going into this, Joss, when he first cast James, he came to us and said, "We've got James Spader. It's very exciting, but he doesn't just want to be the voice." We were like, "Okay, not sure how to use that and how we're going to do that, but okay, then is he prepared to get in a mocap suit?" He said, "Yep." "Okay, is he prepared to wear funny rigs and do all that kind of stuff with performance stuff on, cameras on his head and dotting his face?" "Yep." "Okay, then we're going to get this guy, and we're going to put him in a mocap suit, and we're going to put him in the mocap suit, and we're going to see what he does." And we were all, to be honest, quite skeptical. And he owned that role. He owned it from not only the Mark I, when he's the broken Ultron, but also all the way through to Ultron Prime and the various versions of Ultron Prime we see towards the end of the film. And if we didn't have that characterization, I think it would have been a much more challenging job. I think we were incredibly fortunate to have a performer who gave it his all, and like you say, what we see up on screen really, in many ways, it is driven by the intent of James Spader, which was I thought a great thing.
Absolutely. Questions? Should we start taking questions? Is that the signal you're giving me there, Ben? Yeah, okay. We're going to start taking some questions. We've got a few coming over Twitter. Is that right? Okay.
Yes, sir. From Twitter, which is harder to share, shots or assets?
It's all easy as far as I'm concerned.
Assets. I mean,
Yeah.
we were talking about how people were friendly and we were able to have direct call. Now, it's really hard. It's rare that you share materials and rigs between. In fact, I haven't heard of many cases where that's the case. So we would get the DNEG riggers ringing Abs Jerome, who did the incredible rigging work on Ultron Prime, saying, "What the hell is this thing?" It was the most complicated rig of its type that we'd done, for sure. And his face had like 600 controllers. So that was hard. I mean, it was hard for them, and lots of phone calls back and forth and stuff. So I think, getting the assets. What do you think, Simone?
Definitely
Yeah.
assets.
One thing I'd say that potentially then from the production side related to shots is that it's very difficult to share one shot from one vendor cutting straight to the next. And I think that aside from the asset challenge was then in post trying to make sure that you kept the level of consistency, not just with the assets, but with the shots as you're cutting from method to ILM to someone else, back to back to back, as well as then taking into concern what the DI is going to do with that afterwards and how much is the DI versus we push on to the vendors, and knowing where those lines are and how long you can delay.
When you're doing shots, we did a bunch of shots with Lola, who were doing the treatment on Vision. And so I imagine they were thinking the same things we were, which was like, okay, we've got to get there first. We don't want to be waiting. So we actually treated our shots as if, okay, if we needed to give Lola a comp, then what would we need to do to make sure that, for example, if we're doing a reframing, that all of that information is passed through? And they were saying, okay, well, if we're going to get it first, it'll be like, we'll just treat the green screen. So we'll give you a green screen shot. And so it actually worked out pretty well.
Very good. Ben?
From San Francisco, Couple of questions. What renderer did ILM use for the show, and was the work split between different units at ILM in general and on the facilities that worked on the picture?
So we used RenderMan for most of the CG assets, and then the environments were V-Ray through our generalist team. And then we had ILM had 4 branches going on this, great teams in all of them. Singapore did a lot of the freighter interior with Ultron and Clow, Andy Serkis's character, that sequence. London, we started the Hulkbuster sequence in San Francisco, and London did a bunch of those shots as well, and then all of the stuff with the life raft rescue and all that sort of stuff, some great work there. And then Vancouver actually they are pretty closely tied to San Francisco, so we're able to share more dynamically. They did large chunks on the edge of Sokovia with the cut-off and the Thor rescue, and then a lot of stuff like the big spectacular shot in the church where the camera dollies around and you see all the Avengers. So a whole variety of work from there. So, and then in San Francisco, as well as the Hulkbuster, we did the opening parts of the opening sequence, the big opening shot, and a lot of the battle and the destruction stuff.